the reasonableness of Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, John 1:1. If we want to see how rational Jesus was, we should look at his approach to life. There's a misconception, especially among young people, that Jesus is unreasonable and that Christianity is a religion that contradicts reason. Some young men have even said, "I don't want to join the church because I want to use my reason." It's strange to hear such statements when Jesus consistently advocated for the use of reason. Christianity is the only religion that demands the continuous and daring use of the intellect. Many think they're using their reason when, in reality, they're acting based on prejudice or suffering from a lack of critical thinking. I've heard people criticize Christianity as unreasonable because of something a particular Christian said, as if Jesus of Nazareth should be held responsible for every thought or statement made by his followers. Others have been driven away from Christianity because of certain statements in books they've read. How unreasonable! It's unfair to hold Jesus of Nazareth accountable for everything that people who identify as Christians think or publish. If people want to know whether Christianity is reasonable or not, why don't they read the Gospels? They're short and can be read at least once a week, yet people continue to refuse to read them, the only authentic source of information about what the Christian religion truly is. Many have no problem reading a 400-page novel, but struggle to read the four Gospels. It's these individuals who like to talk about the unreasonableness of Christianity. Why not be reasonable? Christianity has only one authoritative book. Why not read it? So, open your New Testament and observe Jesus' approach to life. The word life was frequently on his lips because he loved it. He wanted people to truly live. He saw the tragedy of the world in the fact that human life was often shallow and unsatisfying. "I came that they may have life and may have it more abundantly," was how he described the purpose of his coming. "I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life." With these phrases, he aimed to help people understand his mission and who he was. People everywhere desire to live, but the tragedy is that many fail to achieve this. There is a path that leads to life, but only a few find it. Unfortunately, we often do things that limit our capacity for living and drain our vitality. We are creatures of imitation and tend to adopt the habits and methods of those around us to our detriment. We are all cowards, allowing ourselves to be fooled, intimidated, and cheated out of our potential. We are all greedy, eagerly pursuing things that we believe will bring happiness, but in doing so, we become restless and miserable, missing out on the true joys of life. We are all short-sighted, sacrificing future treasures in order to achieve immediate goals. Life isn't full, rich, or sweet for many of us because we're burdened by doubts, fears, and unreasonable expectations imposed by a foolish society. Jesus aims to break these chains and allow life to reach its full potential. Doing something that diminishes the richness and fullness of a person's life is foolish. We make rational choices when we engage in activities that enhance and empower our lives. Jesus always reasoned with people about living the right way. Life was extremely valuable to him, and his question, "What does it benefit a person to gain the whole world but lose their life?" is a sentence that will always be remembered. Jesus had a habit of asking questions to expose the foolishness of people. Foolishness cannot be ashamed unless it confronts its own actions. People do foolish things because they do not think. If they took the time to reflect, they would stop doing them. Jesus always asked, "What do you think?" His only hope for people is to encourage them to think. His approach is similar to how God is depicted in the Bible by Isaiah, always saying, "Come, let us reason together." The Sermon on the Mount is a section of the New Testament that is universally praised today, and for good reason. Every sentence is valuable, and every paragraph expresses common sense in its purest form. His remark on profanity is sensible. Swearing was common in his time, as it is today, but profanity is always irrational and nonsensical, even to those who engage in it. The Hebrew people deeply revered God's name, so they used substitutes like the name of their city, God's throne, the earth, the heavens, or their own heads. This was childish and absurd, and Jesus criticized this practice. Say what you want to say, and then stop. Extra words are unnecessary and harmful. Isn't this just common sense? Why would someone include unrelated words when expressing a thought or feeling? And if someone is expressing a low and brutal feeling, why include the most sacred names of religion in their sentences? Profanity is a sin against reason. It makes no sense. A person swears because they are weak, have a limited vocabulary, and lack self-control. Profanity is completely senseless and foolish. Jesus detested it because it was stupid and irrational. Jesus brings this same logical mindset to the discussion of prayer. In the first century, people focused too much on the outward forms of prayer. They prioritized the body over the soul. They repeated the same words over and over again and called it praying. They said pious words on street corners, and as long as their neighbors saw it, they considered it prayer. To Jesus, this devotion was ridiculous. If God is an intelligent being, why engage in such meaningless and mocking behavior? If God is spirit, then prayer is about communing with him, and that can be best achieved when alone and separated from the world. There is no need to repeat words, as sincerity and spiritual connection are the essential elements. It is so sensible and reasonable that it will never become outdated. He also has a logical approach to fasting. In Palestine, fasting had become a rigid system. People fasted according to a strict schedule. They followed precise rules, and being obedient to these regulations was seen as pious. People fasted not just once, but multiple times every week, believing it pleased God. But Jesus saw this whole system as mechanical and detestable. It lacked reason and was purely formal and dull. Additionally, flaunting and showing off one's fasting to the world was despicable. True fasting must be a spiritual exercise. The spirit must control the body. Fasting is not about abstaining from food. It is about the condition of the heart of the person fasting. Furthermore, fasting cannot be done on a set schedule. Jesus refused to obey the rules set by religious leaders, and he did not require his disciples to follow them either. This upset many religiously strict individuals who sought an explanation from Jesus. His response brought them to the heart of the matter. Can wedding guests mourn while the bridegroom is with them? But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. How enlightening and sensible. Fasting is a spiritual practice. The body is to be controlled by the spirit. There are times when the soul is joyful, and fasting is not appropriate. Sometimes our spirits can feel down, and during those times we may not have much of an appetite. Following strict fasting rules doesn't make much sense. Jesus did not promote this kind of fasting as part of his teachings. When fasting is practiced within Christianity, it should be because of a physical or spiritual reason, not in order to adhere to some artificially imposed regimen. Jesus often sheds light on moral actions through his questioning. He challenges people's earthly vanity by asking thought-provoking questions. For example, he asks, "Isn't life more important than food?" It's obvious that life is more important, but many people forget this and prioritize eating above all else, diminishing the true value of life. People often make a big fuss about the dishes, cutlery, and number of courses, making eating a complicated and burdensome task. Women especially suffer under the pressure, and life loses its joy. Similarly, Jesus asks, "Isn't the body more important than clothing?" When we stop and think, it's clear that the body should come first. However, many people prioritize fashion and conform their bodies to fit clothing trends, even if it harms their physical well-being. Countless individuals suffer a pale and weak existence because they prioritize clothing over their own bodies. Jesus sees this behavior as foolish and wrong. Life should always come first. People should dress in ways that preserve their physical well-being and make it easier for them to live the life they were meant to live. This is reasonable, even if the whole world denies it. Jesus' questions always cut through the nonsense. He asks, "Isn't a person more valuable than a sheep?" It's obvious that humans are more important, even if the world doesn't always act like it. In the past, people cared more about the well-being of their livestock than the welfare of unrelated individuals. This kind of barbarism still exists today. If a horse falls in the street, people rush to help it, but if a man is drunk and passed out in a corner, people ignore him or even laugh. Society still doesn't treat animals and humans reasonably. Jesus never let himself be influenced or intimidated by sacred institutions. Among the Jews, the Sabbath was the most revered institution. However, it had become so strict and burdensome that it was impossible to live with it. Jesus saw through all the unnecessary rules and regulations and stated a simple truth. The Sabbath was made for humans, not humans for the Sabbath. The priority should always be human life. The Sabbath should serve humans, not control them. Jesus challenged the ridiculous arguments of the religious leaders and set people free from the oppressive bondage of Sabbath observance. His perspective on Sabbath observance is reasonable. There are many more examples of Jesus' remarkable common sense, but time is limited. He dismissed foolish arguments with a simple statement: healthy people don't need a doctor, only sick people do. He asked people to do great things, but always provided a reason why they should follow his instructions. The foolish objections to prayer were crushed by his question: if you, being flawed, know how to give good things to your children, how much more will your heavenly Father give good things to those who ask him? It's clear that the best part of us comes from the heart of God. The fact that we love to give good things to our children proves that the same disposition exists in God. We would not have had the inclination if he had not had it first. If we give, he gives, and he will give forever. This makes perfect sense and cannot be argued against. Any arguments against prayer are not logical. There is one sentence in the New Testament that is universally considered to be highly valuable: treat others as you would like to be treated. This sentence is simply common sense. But someone might ask, does Christianity expect us to have a weak and submissive attitude towards the world's challenges? Does Jesus not encourage his followers to let others walk all over them? Actually, that idea doesn't come from the New Testament, but from other books you may have read. Jesus is actually quite sensible. He advises, do not give holy things to those who are unworthy, and do not share valuable things with those who won't appreciate them, as they may trample on them and harm you. So, who are the unworthy ones? They are a certain type of people. And who are the ones who won't appreciate valuable things? They are another type of people. We need to be discerning. Not all people are the same, and they shouldn't be treated in the same way. Jesus turned his back on certain men and refused to answer others. The high priest was amazed because Jesus didn't respond, and Pontius Pilate was angry because Jesus wouldn't engage with him. This shows that Jesus had perfected common sense. Some of us think we have to respond to every foolish person who talks or answer every question asked. But that's not our duty. When Jesus sent his disciples out to preach, he told them that if people didn't want to listen, they should shake the dust off their sandals and go somewhere else. He followed that plan himself. He wasn't a weak and overly sweet person. When necessary, he confronted men with anger that scared them and used words that stung. His approach to dealing with bad people is very sensible, but someone might say, isn't it unreasonable for Jesus to expect us to believe in doctrines that we can't understand? Where does he demand that? Show me where, because I can't find it. When I read the New Testament, I hear him saying, follow me, follow me. That's his favorite advice. And when people wanted to know how to determine if he was a worthy leader to follow, he replied, if anyone is willing to do God's will, they will know if my teachings are from God or if I'm speaking on my own. Isn't this reasonable? Jesus says that if you want to understand the Christian life, then work at it. If you want to know the truth, then live it. This is common sense. How else could one discover the truth of a religion if they didn't put effort into it? If you want to learn to speak Italian, you don't just think about it or read about it, but you actively work on it. It takes a lot of effort, but that's okay. You can't learn a language without making mistakes, so all you can do is keep working at it. The same goes for the Christian life. Some people think they can become Christians just by thinking about it, reading about it, or listening to a preacher talk about it. How absurd! You can never become a Christian until you're willing to put in the work. Are you ready to start now?